It's been 6 long years since I've watched a single piece of media related to The Walking Dead. I, like many people, checked out of this universe the moment that Rick Grimes left the show. The Walking Dead is his story, and I was no longer interested in investing my time in a show where he was not the focal point. He was a big reason why I connected with the original show all those years ago when it premiered. And there was a time when I considered Rick Grimes to be one of my all-time favorite fictional characters. So when I heard that they would finally be continuing his story in a new spin-off series, I figured I would give it a shot. And much to my surprise, I was not disappointed. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
I'd be lying to you if I didn't say that the first thing that I was looking for when the credits started to roll for this show was to see whether or not Scott Gimple was still involved. To me, he is the man who single-handedly ruined The Walking Dead all those years ago back in Season 4. And much to my disappointment, I discovered that he is still involved in both a producing and storytelling perspective. So after seeing that, I have to admit, instantly I did not have high hopes. But as I actually watched the episode, it did feel like, to me, they were trying to do the character of Rick justice for the most part. Now, I can't go as far as to say this episode hooked me all over again, and that this show is going to be just as engaging and must-see as those original Walking Dead seasons. But what I will say is that this show, at the very least, has an opportunity to give longtime fans the closure with this character that we never really got. Rick was kind of mysteriously removed from this equation the last time we saw him, and as a fan, it was very unsatisfying. When you spend as much time with a character as we did with him, you expect a proper send-off. And a lot of time has passed, and it was starting to feel like we were never going to get that proper send-off. But now I do feel like this show has the opportunity to fulfill that.
Jesus Christ, it's about time!
So we finally catch up with Rick and we find out that he is a prisoner of this military organization that runs, hides, and protects a fully functional super secret city. And Rick just so happens to be one of the only people who is repeatedly trying to escape from this situation. I find it very interesting that a man as battle-hardened as Rick is, and someone who has been through what he's been through, is now essentially feeling trapped by safety. Let that sink in for a moment. Any other person would be working their ass off to get into this city officially. And all Rick wants to do initially is get back to his family, get back to Michonne. And like the badass that we all know and love, he is pretty much willing to do anything to accomplish that. Even cutting off his own hand and cauterizing the wound in a burnt out carcass of a walker. The show very much sets it up that being in this society might make you safe, but you are not truly free to do as you please. Because if they just allowed people to come and go, it could compromise the operation and the integrity of the city. The good news for Rick is there's this authority figure who has taken a liking to him and sees a future leader in Rick. The great part about this is that we as the audience understand what kind of leader he can be already. Although leading in such a structured environment is a completely different animal for him, especially when you compare it to just leading a small group of survivors. Rick initially rejects the advances to join this army because that's not what he desires. This episode very much deals with Rick's own personal desires clashing with his natural tendency to be a leader and a savior. He eventually comes to the conclusion that if he does agree to join, it will open up more opportunities for him to escape.
That makes sense.
But the more that he trains and the more that he interacts with these people in this military society, the more he starts to buy into their idea of saving the world. This authority figure, Okafor, likes Rick because he views him as a free thinker. And he wants to use Rick and another recruit to try to change the way the army does things from the inside out. I'm going to be honest, this is the one thing that I don't really think this episode needed. I don't know why we needed this basically female version of Rick. I think they should have kept the focus squarely on Rick, re-establishing him as the leader that we know that he is. This female character's only real purpose is to basically talk sense into Rick from time to time, because she's a little bit more down with what the military organization is trying to do. I just think it would have been more impactful for him to come to these conclusions on his own, or simply just through his interactions with Okafor.
You can act like a man! What's the matter with you?
In fact, one of the best scenes in the episode involved Rick attacking Okafor in the night, basically doing everything in his power to try to convince him that he's not the right man for the job. He wants him to know that his ultimate goal is to still get back to Michonne, and that if he has a problem with that, he should probably just kill him now. But Okafor doesn't buy into it because he still feels like Rick is the best person for the job. He even gives him a very important mission right after this that involves setting up a brand new base of operations. I do like the fact that this show gives Rick a real mystique as a character. They make him feel important. I just think he would have felt even more important had we not had this secondary character, this female character that he's got to bounce everything off of.
Because it's all part of the plan.
The episode comes to an end with Rick's helicopter being shot down, and then we have who is revealed to be Michonne killing what is left of Rick's team. She even nearly kills him in the process. They basically leave us with a little mini cliffhanger of their reintroduction to each other. I hope this is resolved quickly and we get to see the outcome, but based on the scenes from next week, it looks like we're going to be following Michonne in the next episode and how she got to this point. And this is a problem to me because waiting episodes to resolve a conflict or an event was one of the biggest reasons that I became frustrated with The Walking Dead all those years ago. But I will wait to see how it plays out next week before judging it completely. Overall, I think this episode did a great job of reintroducing us to Rick and also creating this new conflict in him that allows him to still be able to grow as a character as well. I also felt like the episode did a decent job of world building, basically giving us tidbits of information about this new aspect of this world that we are just now being introduced to. We get a decent look at the inner workings of this society. There's nothing too detailed, but it's enough to give us a pretty good understanding of how things work. There wasn't a whole lot of zombie action in this one, but that's not a huge deal to me either. To me, The Walking Dead was always at its best when it focused on the human characters, the alive characters, and basically just used the walkers as background threats as they should be.
Goddamn right, that's the only way I work, Cap.
Part of me wishes they drew out Rick's acceptance of this new life just a little bit more, maybe 1 or 2 more episodes, but I do understand that there's only 6 episodes total and that they needed to move things along a bit quicker. There's a great plot device of Rick writing letters to Michonne that she will ultimately never be able to read, that is used to give us a better understanding of Rick's thought process through this whole episode. Rick is shown as a damaged and conflicted man who is desperately looking for something to latch onto. It just so happens that he regains purpose momentarily from the most unlikely source. Ironically, his acceptance to moving on is what inadvertently gives him exactly what he ultimately wanted, and that's a reunion with Michonne. It'll be interesting to see their interactions and how this show moves forward whenever the show decides to show us that. Bottom line, I think The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, is worth a watch. Both if you're a longtime fan or just looking for a reason to get involved with the show again and follow some familiar faces.
Y'all be cool. Right on.